Welcome, everyone, to the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller. Fun night of college hoops last night. Fun night tonight planned as I'll be headed to the Nap Center because, I should probably give you a heads up. My car is fixed, so we'll be able to actually drive to the Nap Center tonight and be able to check out some good Missouri Valley Conference basketball in Des Moines as Drake men take on Valpo, a team that has caused headaches for everyone in the Valley, but maybe not as much so when they're on the road. So we'll get into kind of breaking down that game. We'll also talk about last night, also in the state of Iowa for the Missouri Valley Conference. UNI gets their 10th home win of the season. A great performance from the team all around. And you also have Titan Anderson just continue to be unstoppable is what it feels like at this point in the season. And then we'll also get into kind of some concerns that we saw last night in the state of Iowa with basketball. Talking about that team in Iowa City. That was not pretty. I turned it off with about 2 minutes to go, and I know they were able to somewhat make a comeback. It wasn't completely over, but it felt over. So that's the plan for today's show. Of course, as always, please like, subscribe, and comment. We are out at 2 o'clock on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all that good stuff. And make sure to follow along on all different social media platforms for highlights, thoughts, all that good stuff. So let's jump right into it with today's game. The Drake Bulldogs at home taking on Valpo. Drake, right now, we saw them probably have one of their best offensive games against a good Indiana State team. I know they're struggling. They've lost 4 straight, but still an okay team. This performance by Drake, though, was jump-started by what we saw from Mitch Muscari. He was able to get open. They were causing screens, letting him get a few seconds to look at the basket. And that was the biggest part that we said on Monday that led to the victory for the Drake Bulldogs. But last time these two teams played, the Valpo Beacons and the Drake Bulldogs, it was in Valpo, and we've said it all year long how difficult it is to play at Valpo. Drake really struggled to have that balance. So last time they played, Drake was able to win by 66-60. Bennett Sturts tied his career high at that time of 29 points. You had 12 points coming from Tavion Banks, and that was it. That was it for scoring, really, for the Drake Bulldogs. The offense, the starters, not a lot of people able to really help out for the Drake Bulldogs. It was tough to watch. And then on top of that, the defense wasn't all there, and they were allowing bench players to put up 15 points, 20 points. And the bench outscored Drake's 39-16. And so, like we said, Valpo, a great team at home. There's something about that brown and yellowish court, and there's just something in the air at Valpo that causes teams to struggle. We saw Indiana State struggle, Bradley struggle against Valpo. But so while they hold the third best home record at 8-3, Drake and Bradley have the best home record at 9-1, and then you have UNI at 10-2. They also hold the third worst road record in the conference at 2-5. And this Valpo team is really strong defensively. This is going to be a lower scoring game, but while their defense is able to hold up their end, the offense really struggles. The offense really struggles to help, when the defense is able to cause turnovers, to really utilize those turnovers. And that's why we see Valpo kind of in the middle of the pack. They're a good team, but still missing a few pieces offensively. And really the keys for tonight for Drake, we're to the point of the season where it's pretty blatant what Drake has to do. They have to get their starters involved early. That includes Sturts, Muscari, Manyow needs to get better inside within 5 feet of the hoop, and Abreu. Just get those guys all involved, and then just a couple of guys. You don't need everyone coming off the bench to put up 10 plus. That would be great, but you also have to be realistic. And no, Ferguson probably isn't going to put up 10 points, but make sure he doesn't turn over the ball. Get a couple of baskets from him. Tavion Banks, continue to feed him. If he has 10 plus, it's always a good sign. And then Isaiah Howard's been great as well. Get Isaiah Howard involved earlier. And so that's the biggest key that we've said all year long, is just getting more players involved. And then number 2, the defense just needs to show out and not allow 39 points coming from Valpo's bench. And I think this Drake team is starting to figure things out. Ever since that loss to Murray State, they've looked like a better team. Against Bradley, they just hung around there and were able to pull off that 7-point victory. The defense really played probably one of their best games. And then against Indiana State, you just had an offensive powerhouse that we hadn't seen from Drake in a while. And I hope not only does that give confidence to Mitch Muscari to, after his shooting slump, but hopefully this just gives a confidence boost to the Drake offense as a whole, and show to themselves that, yes, when things are clicking, when you just get a few holes filled, this team is really hard to beat because they're so fundamentally sound defensively. They're so good defensively. But the offense, much like Valpo, not to the same extreme as Valpo, sometimes isn't able to hold up their end with how good the defense plays. So the keys are usual for Drake. I mean, we'll be saying it all year long of what Drake has to do to take down Missouri Valley Conference opponents. Right now, ESPN has this game set as a 14.5-point favorite towards the Bulldogs. I know they just came off blowing out Indiana State on the road, but doesn't 14.5 still feel kind of high for this team? Like Ben McCollum, he wins games, but he doesn't blow teams out. And so I'm going to say that, but then also think Drake wins this by 7 or 8 points in a more comfortable 7 or 8 rather than that close 66-60 battle. I think it's more comfortable. I just don't know if it's in Drake's DNA to really blow teams out. I mean, against Bradley, they won by 7 in a close game. But other than that game against Indiana State, they really don't blow anyone out. It's hard for them to do that. So I think Drake wins this game comfortably, but it is going to be like an 7, 8, 9 point victory. The 14.5, it just feels a little too high. If they put 12, I would kind of understand that. But for some reason in my head, in my gut, the 14.5 just feels like way too much. Just feels like way too much. So Drake taking on Valpo, that game at 6:30 tonight. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. Always you can listen to Michael Admire on 1350 ESPN Des Moines, as well as just follow along on @MediaRowPod at Twitter. Also me on Twitter at Justin_C Miller, as I'll be giving up updates, coaches interviews after the game. And hopefully, I'm excited. The few things I'm going to be watching is I'm always curious in his rotations and Ben McCollum's rotations. He's been really efficient in getting guys rest, but also just how Mitch Muscari comes out after that strong performance against Indiana State. Does he have a little pep in his step tonight? Can you see the confidence growing? And then, as always, just Isaiah Jackson, what he can do for the Drake Bulldogs against Indiana State. Isaiah Jackson did start again, only played 12 minutes, so you're seeing his minutes grow, but it's really been impressive to see the guys stepping in for a hurt Isaiah Jackson. Combs, 31 minutes from him against Indiana State. He had 4 assists, 5 rebounds, 4 points. And then Isaiah Howard, 18 minutes, along with 3 of 6 shooting. Tavion Banks has continued to just be one of the more consistent players for this Drake Bulldog team. 18 minutes, 5 of 6 from the field, 10 points. And it'll just be exciting to see. Those will be the two things I'm looking at. Is Isaiah Jackson's minutes going up? Is he looking comfortable on that left ankle that is going to be bandaged up, braced up? And then secondly, is Mitch Muscari going to be visibly more confident? Are they going to try to still get him, extra screens to get open and not just give him the ball when there's 2 seconds left on the shot clock? See the game plan that they had against Indiana State. You can't run the same exact game plan, I don't believe, because Valpo's too good of a defense, especially guarding the 3-point line. And I think they'll be able to adjust and see what Indiana State did wrong last weekend and improve on it today. But I believe in this coaching staff that Ben McCollum has, because they've proven it time and time again that they can make the correct adjustments. They know what needs to happen to get certain players touches, and those will be the two things I'm looking at. So Drake Valpo, 6:30 tonight. I'll be there in Des Moines at the Knapp Center to take on Valpo. Drake, 9-1 at home, taking on a 2-5 road team in Valpo. So that one should be fun. Had some fun games in the Missouri Valley last night. Starting off, let's go to the game I was wrong about, because I was very confident. I thought Indiana State was going to be able to pull off that upset, but against Illinois State, they lose by 4. They kept it close, but Illinois State, 85-81 victory over Indiana State. They've now lost 5 in a row, the Sycamores. Things have just kind of fallen off the rails. I still have confidence in them because of how this offense can play. They hit 13 threes, and I thought that was going to be the game changer of a team that isn't good at guarding the 3-point line in Illinois State. They give up about 8 3-pointers a game. Indiana State makes about 10. They went over that total. I thought for sure that was going to lead them, but also I wasn't expecting Illinois State to shoot 51% from the field and them to also hit 11 3-pointers. So Indiana State proves me wrong and loses that one. Belmont and Bradley, I thought was going to be way closer, but Bradley handles Belmont on the road by winning by 12, 89-77. And then the game that we knew wasn't going to be close, Missouri State just is not a good basketball team. They still have yet to win a conference game this season, but UNI is starting to click offensively. Last night, they had 4 players score 10 or more points, but it was really highlighted by a player that not a lot of people know of outside of Iowa, and that's in Titan Anderson. He is a consistent freak. I mean, this guy is one of the best players. He doesn't get talked about for Missouri Valley Player of the Year much, and I know UNI hasn't had great teams. They've been competitive, and that's probably one of the issues, but man, he is one of the more consistent, best players in the conference right now. And you have Titan Anderson as UNI wins 79-68. Anderson, second time this season, putting up 20-plus points. He had 21 points, 10 rebounds last night. He's now 8th in school history in steals after recording a steal last night, which was his 140th against Missouri State. He's now 12 assists away from tying 3 other UNI players, but highlighted by the great Seth Tuttle as one of the only players to record 1,000 points, 700 rebounds, and 200 assists in his time with the UNI Panthers. Titan Anderson is a consistent freak of nature. He's a great athlete. Watch him play. His experience shows on the court. His athleticism explodes on the court. And his coaches and players, teammates, they trust him. They put the ball in his hand when they need it most. And I think he'll cause major issues for the Drake defense come next week on Wednesday when they come into the Knapp Center. I think this is just going to be a back and forth battle next week, and he's going to be one of the main reasons that Drake is not going to blow out UNI. It's going to be a back and forth battle is because of Titan Anderson. And the Seth Tuttle thing, man, it makes me feel old when you go, damn, Seth Tuttle was like over 10 years ago. He was playing for you. And I remember watching Seth Tuttle in those teams, and he was so fun to watch because he was a big man that could stretch the floor. And now you're watching Titan Anderson, and he may not have the post moves like Seth Tuttle did, but he still has a full baggage of moves that he can use on defenses, and he is one of the best players in the Valley. He doesn't get talked about enough, so definitely wanted to give Titan Anderson a shout-out. 21 points, 10 rebounds last night as they just dominated the Bears. A lot of us thought that way. I mean, Missouri State's just not good. The only consistent, I've said this 1,000 times, the only consistent in this crazy conference is that SIU and Missouri State are not good teams. That's the only consistent. And a little bit of a shorter show today, but before we, talk about that team in Iowa City, do want to go through the games that will be played tonight. So, of course, you have Valpo at Drake at 6:30. At 6 o'clock before that, Murray State heads on the road to face Southern Illinois. Murray State only favored by 1.5. Give me Murray State and winning by like 6 or 8. Seems like a nice margin. Because this offense, while Murray State has lost now 2 in a row, they're still a really good offense. They're a team that is figuring things out. They're a team that is well coached, and their starting lineup is really balanced too. It's never just one guy being the main guy. It's usually 4 guys scoring over 10 plus on that starting lineup. So I think that gives Southern Illinois issues too. Southern Illinois 8-11 in the conference. They only have 2 conference wins on the season. Give me Murray State in the 1.5. That's just way too low. Vegas must know something I don't, but watching these 2 teams throughout the season, give me Murray State. And then UIC takes on Evansville. Evansville, a team at home that isn't bad at all. They're 500 at home, 5-5, which is good for an Evansville team that has been on a roller coaster and isn't the strongest on either side of the ball. But they're 1-8 on the road. Thank goodness they're at home tonight. But UIC is just again, very similar to Belmont, is a team that you're going to have to just try to outscore them. They're not going to play great defense, but you better make the shots they give to you. UIC has the length over Evansville. They have the speed, and they have the shooters over Evansville. I like UIC winning this one. The 4.5, I'll take the over on that too. I'll take UIC winning by a couple more than just 4.5 points. I will take UIC winning that one. So those are the games tonight in the Missouri Valley Conference for your Wednesday edition of the conference schedule. So Drake at Valpo, I'll be at that one. Make sure you follow along. Before we wrap up today, let's jump into what we witnessed last night. One, there's no way there was 8,000 people in Carver Hawkeye last night. I had buddies at that game. Did not look like 8,000 people. I'm not the best at that stuff too, like trying to guess the attendance. But I also know, like, it's a common thing for SIDs to kind of, make it look a little better. And that's just everywhere. That's not a dig at Iowa. That's everywhere. But 8,000, don't know if there was actually 8,000 there, as Iowa loses to Minnesota 72-67. Third straight loss for the Hawkeyes. Third longest losing streak right now for the Big Ten. And they lose to Minnesota, who was 1-6 heading into that game in the conference. And they give Minnesota their first road win in the season. Minnesota is not a good team. In Iowa, it's just hard to watch. It's not fun to watch. Yeah, when their offense is on, that's great. But even when their offense is on, they're giving up 90-plus points, it feels like. I saw a stat where they're like top 5 in the country in points per game. But they also give up probably top 5 most points per game. Fran has never believed in defense. He doesn't look like he cares out there. The players don't look like they care out there. It's just not fun basketball. And I'm sitting here watching the game last night, and, full disclosure, I did turn it off like with 3 minutes to go. I just didn't. They were kind of making a comeback, but I didn't have confidence in them. And I'm just sitting here watching the game, and I'm still just astonished that Iowa didn't go after Darren DeVries. I mean, how do you let a guy like that, who's an hour and a half down the road from you, leave? How? And I know Fran's buyout is huge. I know, but you know what? You bite that bullet and you just try to move on, because you're not selling tickets, clearly. And you're not winning games, clearly. And you're not competing against top teams. I mean, their best performance was against Iowa State, which was a really good game by Iowa. But other than that, you see the difference. I mean, if you watch Michigan State right now, who's on a heater, play, and then you watch Iowa play, it looks like they're playing two different sports. And so you let Darren DeVries just walk away, who was going to bring in a great coaching staff, a 5-star player in Tucker DeVries. Now we know he's hurt, but you had Tucker DeVries coming. He doesn't have to move his family far. Everyone in Iowa loves Darren DeVries. How do you let a guy like that slip away? And then it just hurts even more when you're seeing what he's doing without 2 of his biggest stars. I mean, he beat Kansas, beats Iowa State, beats Gonzaga. And then Iowa can't even beat one of the worst teams in their own conference in Minnesota at home. It's hard to watch. I've never been a Fran McCaffrey fan, and I think Iowa fans are just losing interest. It's kind of a dark time right now to be a Hawkeye fan. I think the women's team is going to be good. First-year head coach with Jan Jensen. I love Jensen. I think she's got a good program. That's going to build up, and you're still going to get fans going to that. I think they sold out every home game. You're still going to get growth from that team. Yes, they're on a losing streak, but I think everything will be fine. But you have the football team, who everyone's kind of just waiting until Kirk leaves. And then you have the same exact feeling for the men's basketball team, just waiting for Fran to quit. And then Fran's just waiting to get fired because he's waiting for that payday. So wanted to touch on that Hawkeye game because watching that was brutal. Not fun to watch. Not good basketball at all. So Iowa loses 72-67 versus Minnesota. The team in Ames continues to kick ass. You have them dominating UCF. It's funny to see what happens when you play one of the lower teams in your conference and you're actually a good basketball team. At home, you dominate. And that game wasn't close at all. They were up by like 20 at halftime. While you flip over to Iowa City, they're at home playing one of the worst teams in their conference, and they're down by double digits for most part of that game. So tonight, make sure to follow along for Drake and Valpo, as well as always, check out us on social media. Like, subscribe, comment. Always appreciate that. We'll have coaches' interviews, hopefully player interviews as well tonight. And then tomorrow, we'll break down what we saw from Drake and Valpo, as well as kind of just give you a preview of what to expect for this weekend. Also, the Drake women play on Friday as well. So a lot of Drake basketball to break down tomorrow. And as well, we're almost here to the weekend, which means we're almost to conference championship time in the NFL. So you have Chiefs and Bills, which will be a fantastic matchup as it always is. And then Eagles taking on Washington. Washington just coming out of nowhere. So that is what we'll expect to break down tomorrow and Friday. And everyone have a great and safe Wednesday night. Enjoy watching some great basketball again tonight. See you tomorrow at 2 o'clock.